I'm Lita Iridium, and I've got, well, the mastermind of classic and heavy metal, Mark Cloer. How you doing, mate?
Oh, great, man. How are you?
Yeah, good, good. So Mark's here. We're going to do Rainbow. So we have sort of mentioned this before, haven't we? That Rainbow's a possibility.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Rainbow with me, let me give you my quick little, history with Rainbow. This, and I was saying to you before the show, we've done actual top 12. You sort of left it with me how many I wanted to sort of include, and I come up with 12. And I really wanted the 12. 10 weren't enough. I must admit that. It was like I was leaving off some real good. And so I said, let's go with 12. And you was happy with that. But my history of Rainbow, and this was one of the easiest lists I've done, only because I think that they've got some outstanding songs. But sorry, Rainbow fans, I haven't got an album where I go, wow. Even the one, the shirt's giving it away there, Mark. But even the one that everyone says is like one of the best albums ever of any band, classic heavy rock and metal band. I have a few songs on each that I love, but I don't think that, I love every song on every album. I think there's some poor songs on each album for me. But that's just my opinion. I'm probably going to piss everyone off now. But, even Richie Blackmore, I know he's influenced a lot of people, and even that neoclassical sort of, he probably invented that neoclassical sort of sound you hear now. Yeah. But I never was a huge fan of his guitar playing, and I know that's pretty sacrilege, and I understand that. But don't know those, I know I heard the live album when I was younger, and I'm not into them 20-minute guitar solo things. It's just not me. It's just but there are some really good songs on each Rainbow album, every single one of them. So I don't know what you think of my comments there, mate.
I mean, I kind of mirror almost exactly what you said. I don't love every song on every album by any means. I think Richie is a phenomenal player, but he can get a little too indulgent sometimes. For my taste. I know some people love those long extended jams. And I guess if I never got to see Rainbow live, any lineup, I never got to see him live. But I guess if I was at the show and he was doing that, it would be mesmerizing. But to listen to it, on a studio album or even some of the live albums where it just goes on and on and on. I kind of tune out after about 5 minutes. As good a player as he is, you and I are very similar as far as instrumentals anyway.
Yeah.
I got to have vocals. For the most part, I have to have vocals to keep me interested.
But to tell you the truth, even live, mate, I remember the bands don't do it an awful lot now. But when you hear the guitar solo come in or the drum solo or anything like that, I'm like, oh, it's time to get a beer or, that I'm not into that. Even live, I'm not into it. But he's a musician for sure.
For sure. He's a brilliant musician. I mean, he can play everything. I mean, he's not just a hard rock guitarist. He's, got a very wide repertoire. These days he seems to be most happy doing that Renaissance type stuff with his wife, and I like some of it, but I'm a metal guy. Some of that stuff just doesn't appeal to me.
I'd say a brilliant musician, but this is probably going to piss people off as well. Songwriting for me is not, it's not up there for my favorite. He's not my favorite songwriter, but a great musician. But some of these songs, by the way, are brilliant songwriting. The ones I got on my list, and that's why I couldn't just choose 10 as well, because I mean, there's some great songs in the Rainbow catalogue. And there's one thing I must say about Richie Blackmore is that he can turn his hand, like you just mentioned, to anything. And the different sides of Rainbow are the way he can bring a new vocalist in and change the sound of the band.
Yeah, completely.
It's pretty cool. It is pretty cool. Yeah. So I pissed enough people off, probably. So we've got 12 to talk about. obviously I've got one of the cats coming in. It's not the same, is it, without the animals?
That's
there
right.
You go. So we're going to go 12-1, mate. You kicking it off, if that's all right. So these are all our obviously good songs for us, and we go from our least favourite to our favourite. I reckon I've got some surprises for you here, because I'm not a huge Rainbow fan as such. I like a lot of their stuff. There might be some here that you're not expecting, I reckon, because I'm not really sure, because I'm not an avid follower of Rainbow. I'm not sure what are the picks for everyone. Does that make sense?
Well, definitely some of mine aren't going to be more popular picks either, but I was just wondering, when did they first come on your radar? When did you first hear Rainbow?
I may have heard, I think I heard the Long Live Rock and Roll single with Dio. That's probably the first time I actually heard them at all. But even then, I don't think I got the album or anything like that. The only album I actually owned, and I don't know, as you know, I don't own any albums now at all. The only album I owned of theirs was the one with Graham Bonnet in.
Okay.
So that's the only one, Down to Earth, wasn't it? And obviously them two singles off of there were huge, and I probably got them off the back of that, you know. But yeah, I think probably Long Live Rock and Roll was the first song I actually heard of Rainbow.
Well, it's ironic you should mention that Graham Bonnet album, because that's the first, Since You've Been Gone is the first Rainbow song I remember hearing. And I don't even know if I knew it was Rainbow, to be perfectly honest. I have memories of hearing that at a very young age, and I guess I heard it on the radio. I don't even remember where I heard it. Years later, when I got into Rainbow, I remembered that song being fairly prevalent in my younger years. I didn't really get into them until after I got into Sabbath first, of course. I've mentioned before, Live Evil was the first Sabbath album I bought. And when I really got into the Ronnie era of Sabbath, I went back, after learning that he had been in Rainbow, I went back and, rediscovered the Rainbow stuff that had come before. And then around that same time, Drugland and Turner was in the band by then. And I remember Street of Dreams being on a compilation cassette that I got somewhere along the lines. So I really liked that song the first time I heard it. So I kind of got deeper into them at that point. And of course, at that point, they were just about to exit the stage anyway.
But to tell you the truth, Long Live Rock and Roll, it might not have even been the first song I heard. I know that I heard that at some point. It could have even been one of them singles that you mentioned off of Down to Earth. But I know that I did get, I'm just thinking Long Live Rock and Roll, it just for some reason it triggers, but it could have been even after, and it's a bit weird, it's a bit hazy now. It's a few years ago, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, mate. Ready? You with your number 12?
All right. My number 12 is going to come off that very album, Long Live Rock and Roll. And it is the brilliant ballad Rainbow Eyes. I mentioned this in one of the ballad shows we did, the one we did from the 70s. Ronnie Dio is just, or was, such a versatile vocalist. And he could go from, the heavy stuff like he did, in Sabbath to something as beautiful as this song. It's got that Renaissance vibe to it. It's just one of those songs, when you hear it, it kind of takes you to another place.
Yeah.
It's a true ballad. It's very emotional song. And I normally don't put ballads on when we can only pick so many songs. I usually don't put ballads on my list. I kind of use those as honorable mentions, but that's one of the best ballads I've ever heard in my life. Yeah. I had to squeak it into the top list here.
Well, I love a ballad, mate. You know me. There you go. It's a great choice, though, mate. So, my number 12, I'm going for the Graham Bonnet era. So, the one and only album we did, Down to Earth. Eyes of the World.
Yeah.
So, this was the standout track for me because it wasn't a single, obviously. It wasn't. And it was more like even though he brought something completely different to the band and the band completely changed, this could almost be on an earlier album with Dio in that sort of sound.
Right.
Obviously the vocals were completely different, but this sort of a longer song, more epic-y sort of song. This is, you could imagine this, couldn't you, on the album before, on Long Live Rock and Roll or something like that. So Eyes of the World, yeah, like I've always liked it since I was a kid. And it was a standout track for me when I was a kid, and it is now as well. Yeah. So
Graham Bonnet was kind of an odd fit to bring into this band after somebody like Dio, because he was, he had the short hair and he didn't look the part at all. And I don't think at his core, I don't think he really considers himself a hard rock heavy metal singer anyway. He's a bit like Glenn Hughes. He kind of got pigeonholed into this career that, at his, if he was honest, he'd probably admit he'd rather be doing different types of music. But, Graham Bonnet, he was in Rainbow, he was in Michael Schenker Group, he was in Alcatraz, he'd been in all these heavier bands, but, some of his earlier stuff, he did a cover of Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? The old Motown song. I think that's probably where his, true love of music is. In fact, Rainbow actually, when he was in the band, this is a live album he did live at Donington in 1980. They actually did a version of that song, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? When I heard that, I was like, what the hell is Rainbow doing that song for? But didn't realize at the time that, he had done it in his solo career. But anyway, he kind of bridged the gap between, like you said, that song in particular could definitely have been from the Dio era.
Yeah.
But Richie was wanting to move more in a commercial direction. And he kind of filled that gap between Dio and what was to come with the much more commercial sounding stuff they did with Joe Lynn Turner.
To tell you the truth, the image, as far as image is concerned, you wouldn't think anything of it now if a guy looking like that would front a band now.
Yeah.
It's back in 1979.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like everyone had long hair. It was just like, what the hell is this? But now it wouldn't mean anything. It was just back then. It was a bit strange. He get a great voice, and he still has, by the way. I've heard. I mean, I don't follow his stuff, but he's got a great voice still, as far as I know. Yeah.
There's a Richie Blackmore documentary where Richie talks about standing behind Graham Bonnet as he's performing on stage, and he said the more he stared at the back of his head, the more pissed off he got. That short hair, because he asked him, or he requested that he grow his hair out if he was going to be in the band, but he wouldn't have any part of it. And Richie said the more he stared at the back of his short shaven head, the more he wanted to hit him in the back of the head with his
Brilliant. Superb. Okay then, mate. Number 11.
All right. My number 11 comes off of Straight Between the Eyes, Tearing Out My Heart. Joe Lynn Turner's, just as we've talked about before, got such a great voice.
Yeah.
He really immersed himself into this song. You kind of, it's a heartbreak kind of song, and you can really feel the pain in his voice as he's singing this. Got a heavy edge to it. It's kind of a mellow song, but it's got some edge to it as well. Just kind of a great mid-tempo song. Love that song.
Man, I love his voice. I mean, he obviously, I think he's the most, he appeared on the most albums, didn't he? I think. Joe Lynn Turner, was it 4?
Yeah, but he did 3 and Ronnie did 3. So
oh, right, 3, yeah.
They both had the same amount.
Oh, man, what a great singer. What an absolutely superb singer. Okay, then, mate, it's a good choice, that, by the way. My number 11 is from the debut album, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, and it's Self-Portrait.
Yeah.
Just love this, man. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I think this is the first time you hear in Ronnie what he's going to become, glimpses of that, where he like that roughness in some of the songs. I mean, I did have this album, or I had this album, but as a kid, I was like, I don't know. I didn't like it that much. I thought it was very up and down. I probably got it. Remember, I wouldn't have got it when it come out. You know, that was, what was that? 1975. I was 5. You know, but so I would have got it at a later stage. And I was never into the 70s stuff, but now I listen to it, and it sounds a lot better than I remember it as a kid. Your taste just changes, doesn't it? But Self-Portrait, it wasn't one of my favourites when I was younger. I had other favourites on this album when I was younger, but this is probably my favourite, one of my favourites now on this album. So Self-Portrait, great song.
It's funny how you go back, like you say, you listen to stuff at a certain point in time, and you're like, yeah, that doesn't do anything for me, but 10 years later, 15 years later, 25 years later, whatever it is, you can listen to that same song and it just hits you in a totally different, totally different way. And you hear something that you didn't, of course, obviously we're a little more mature now. I'll be 52 next week. So, when I first discovered this band, I was probably 13, 14 or whatever. So your taste in music changed, obviously, to some degree, but.
And also, I mean, I read something earlier on. The guy out of Eclipse, Eric Martinson, put something on Facebook about the first time he heard AC/DC. It's a bit change the subject, but he said when he was that age, when he first heard it all them years ago, you just look at it as music. Does it sound good? Doesn't it sound good? Yeah. I think now you're listening for different stuff now. You're listening to it a different way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because I remember saying when we were doing that Heaven and Hell review or whatever you want to call it, I remember saying, at 10, 12, 11 years old, whatever, what sounds good to your ears, but you can't analyze music, when you're a kid. I mean, you really, all you know is, okay, this sounds good to my ears. But like I say, as time goes on, you can put a little more thought behind it and analyze it a little more. So you start to hear things that appeal to you that didn't 20 years ago or whatever the case may be.
Definitely, mate. Cool. Right. We're up to number 10.
Yep. All right. My number 10 will be off of Down to Earth, and it is Since You've Been Gone. Like I said, I think that's the first Rainbow song I remember hearing as a kid. Didn't know it till many years later that it's actually a cover. It's not even an original Rainbow song. It was covered. It was written by Russ Ballard and recorded in, I think it was 76. And then, of course, Rainbow recorded in 79 on this album. And that's the version that's most well known. I guess a lot of other people don't realize it was a cover as well, but definitely a big step toward that commercial sound.
Oh, yeah.
Richie was, looking to capture. And it's a little too commercial for a lot of people that are the Dio only, Rainbow fans. When they hear this song, they just, it totally turns them off because it is so almost poppy sounding, I'll admit, but it's so catchy. I mean,
oh yeah,
I don't know how you can't like it. It's not heavy by any means. It's definitely not, anything like the Dio. I can't imagine Dio having covered it or having recorded this song at all.
No, it's a great song.
Texas. Yeah,
I remember it's a huge hit over here in the UK. Absolutely huge. Okay, then, mate. My number 10. I mean, we're saying it's the newest album, but it's 1995.
Yeah.
So Ariel, I think that's how you pronounce it. So what I like about this, and this really draws me to a lot of rock and metal music, is that sort of Eastern guitar feel. And Richie Blackmore did quite a bit of that, really. But I love it. And obviously one of your favourite vocalists of all time, singing for the band, Doogie White. I'm sure you're going to get onto some of that.
Oh, yeah.
But no, Stranger in a Soul, I think it was a good album. I mean, I don't know what has happened. I mean, even how long have they had Richie, what's his name? Ronnie Romero for now?
He's been there quite a few years.
No wonder the guy goes and does stuff. Why wouldn't he? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.
He's all over the place. He's out there making a living. Richie, I think that whole reunion thing, or whatever, it wasn't even a reunion because it was just Richie and a whole new band. I think it was just kind of to people had been clamoring for years, bring back Rainbow or, do rock again. So I think he finally just got tired of it and said, okay. And he got this new band together. They went out and they did, I think they released 3 live albums of basically the same songs. And Romero's a great singer. If they would go into the studio, they released, I think, 2 one-off tracks. But if they would go into the studio and do a full album, I think they had the potential to do a great album. But he just, he's so entrenched in his Blackmore's Night thing with his wife that I just don't think he wants to take the time to do a full rock album again.
It's a shame. Okay, that's my number 10, mate. Ariel.
All right, my number 9 is going to be off the debut album, Temple of the King.
Yeah.
That's another one that just transports you to another place when you hear it. Great song. Doogie White did an amazing version of it on the live album they released from his era. And there's a video on YouTube of Doogie doing that song with a band called Demon's Eye that he was in a few years ago that was kind of a rainbowish, Deep Purple inspired band. And Dio was obviously a huge influence on Doogie.
Yeah.
And this was shortly after Dio had died, and they performed that song, and Doogie just had tears streaming down his face as he's singing this song. And you could tell it really hit him hard when Ronnie died. He's of all the singers, I know I'm getting off track, but of all the Rainbow singers, I think Doogie White does the best. He does the old songs justice, whether it's Dio songs, the Bonnet songs, the Turner songs.
And there's and there's some. I can't even imagine trying to sing. I know we talk about Ronnie Dio, but Graham Bonnet.
Yeah.
He sang some songs that you just think, how did he sing like that? Some, even that single you just talk Since You Be Gone, you just been talking about. Some of the vocals in that, to emulate some of that must have been ridiculously hard. But yeah, he's a great singer, man. Doogie White. Your second favourite of all time, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. If I had to sit down and file a list, I mean, I've said it before. He's like Tony Martin. The first time I heard his voice, I was like, where's this guy been all my life? Just love his freaking voice.
Great choice, though, mate. That was your number 9, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to a bit of Dio now. Long live rock and roll.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the first songs I heard, like I said, I'm not sure if it was actually the first. It's just fun, man, this song. I just think it's a really great song. I'm not really sure. I know that the chorus is quite simple, like long live rock and roll. The verses just throw me what they're about. I really, there's a strange lyrical, there's always a mystical sort of thing to Ronnie's lyrics, even if he's singing about rock and roll, but just a great song, man. And I think you can hear, even though you heard it on the first, from Elf, which I wasn't a big fan of, into that first Rainbow album, and then you can hear his voice, can't you? Dio's voice growing and growing to what it was going to become, probably for those peaking at them first couple of Dio albums, probably. But just amazing. I think he was a lot smoother back then. Some of his vocals weren't so much on that rough sort of side, but later on he'd be more, Dio, I suppose, was a bit more metal, wasn't it? So he'd become a bit more like that. Long live rock and roll, mate. Absolutely storming track.
Rainbow Eyes, or even Temple of the King that I just mentioned, like you say, his voice back then was much more smooth. I guess that's a good term. I can't imagine him singing those in his later career. Because like I said, his voice did get, that rough sound. Almost a roar. Yeah.
Like he was about 10 foot tall, even though he obviously wasn't. But,
yeah, I think he was trying to overcompensate there, but you never know by hearing his voice that he was 5'3", just or whatever it was. Just amazing if you get that much power out of such a small body.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Long live rock and roll, mate. Be number 9. Okay.
My number 8 is going to come off of Been Out of Shape with Joe Lynn Turner, Street of Dreams. So I think that's the first song I remember hearing of the Joe Lynn Turner. There was a cassette tape called Masters of Metal with a compilation that had Dawkins and Sabbath and several other bands on it, but that song was on it. I remember the first time I heard it. It wasn't real heavy, it was definitely a more commercial sounding song, but again, it's so pleasing to the ears.
Oh yeah.
Just a very catchy song.
I think Jolene Turner could be my favorite era of Rainbow. I just think he was brilliant, and obviously they had to change the music for this. Hearing him sing some of, if it was the music of the early Dio albums and he was singing on it, they had to completely shift, like you've been saying.
Yeah.
But I love that song, man.
Like I said, I never got to see Rainbow, but my buddy Frank Morea lives up in Pittsburgh, and he saw him 3 times within 3 years. 81, 82, 83, I think he told with the Joe Lynn Turner era. I'm so envious of that. I would love to see him one time. You got to see him every year for 3 years straight.
Nice. Very nice. No, it's brilliant, mate. Okay, well, I'm at number 8 now, and So you've already had this one, mate. Tearing Out My Heart.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just amazing vocal by Jolene Turner. I know we've been talking about him already, but I absolutely love it. So much motion in this one, just amazing. You've said all you can about this. A beautiful song, absolutely beautiful. There you go. That's my number 8, mate.
All right, my number 7. I'm going back to Down to Earth again. Lost in Hollywood. Very up tempo. Graham Bonnet song. I can imagine Ronnie singing this song. This is one of those on that album. Like I said, I can actually envision Ronnie singing it. It wasn't so out of the realm of the earlier Rainbow. Again, you said it best. I mean, the songs there are songs that don't do anything for me, but the ones that I really like are just so catchy. I mean, they just instantly, you want to sing along to them. They're just great songs.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So you're right, totally right there, thinking about that song, about being in a Ronnie sort of, because they did them fast tempo songs all the way through, didn't they? No matter who sung from, they've done those sort of faster songs as well. Okay, then, mate. My number 7, going back to Dio again, to the T-shirt, the Rising album, Run with the Wolf.
Yeah.
So again, probably a little bit more of a deeper cut. I don't really know. I'm not an expert on Rainbow, but definitely love it. The vocals again, superb song. I think I've done some sort of, not a reaction, but a review of this song, I think, a while back. But it proves how much I like it. Run with the Wolf, mate. That's my number 7. Beautiful, excellent song.
I don't think that's one of the more well-known ones by any stretch. I don't know that they ever did it live. They may have. Yeah, that's not one you hear mentioned a whole lot. There's a couple other on that album. One in particular that you always hear mentioned when you hear or when people are talking about that album.
I can imagine some of these Dio songs. I can imagine some of them with Sabbath.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. I know it's Dio's voice because you're hearing his voice and you imagine, but I could definitely imagine some of the Sabbath stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know,
like we said when we did that Heaven and Hell video, he was a lot of that stuff on Heaven and Hell. I could imagine being on a Rainbow album. So,
yeah,
it goes both ways. Definitely the
for sure.
Stuff like Lady of the Lake, would fit right in with Lady Evil. That kind of
for sure, mate.
Close relationship there.
definitely. Okay then, mate. We're up to number 6.
Yeah, number 6. I'm going back to Long Live Rock and Roll. Kill the King.
Fast one.
That has got to be one of my favorite Ronnie era songs. Yeah. And I mentioned Lost in Hollywood could have been a Ronnie song. Those two songs, they kind of, I don't want to say they sound alike, but they're very similar when I hear them.
Yeah.
That fast paced kind of vibe to them. But Kill the King is probably one of the heavier. I mean, Rainbow's not really a metal band, even though they were lumped in, as a metal band. They were, hard rock, heavy rock, whatever you want to call it. But that song borders on metal. Metallica did a great version of that song.
Oh, right. I haven't heard that, so I'll have to listen to that. Yeah. It's a great song, mate. Absolutely great song. Well, my number 6 is one that you've chosen, Street of Dreams. Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. Those, I've said this about bands before from that era, making some great choices on singles, to bring out release of singles. That's, you can really hear. Yeah. I don't like saying commercial, but the catchiness of it, the melody of the great choices off of those, especially the Jolene Turner eras. The singles really stand out for sure. But Street of Dreams, mate, it's my number 6.
Yeah, I mean that's what Ronnie or Richie rather was going for. He, the story is that he wanted Ronnie to go in that direction, and Ronnie wasn't having any part of it. He didn't want to sing boy girl type songs, and did not want to go in the commercial direction. So that's when Ronnie said, "All right, well you can do that without me." So he went off on his own. Of course, later going.
You heard what Ronnie said about Vivian Campbell when he joined Def Leppard. I know he didn't get along well with him, but saying Def Leppard were a pop band basically, quite funny. But there you go.
But anyway, what I was going to say, Richie, he pretty much got what he wanted. The Turner lineup, especially, they had some great radio hits. I mean, like I said, that song had radio written all over it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I still occasionally, not too often, but once in a blue moon at 11:30 at night, I'll hear Street of Dreams on the radio. You don't hear it during prime time usually, but it does occasionally still get some radio play around here. But the radio friendly songs they did, that's what Richie was going for, and I think he got what he wanted.
Yeah, for sure, mate. That's why he doesn't have to do anything now.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Number 5, I think, mate.
Okay, now we're getting on to, I'll go ahead and say it, my favorite Rainbow album. Hunting Humans from Stranger in Us All. This song reminds me, I don't know if anybody else has ever picked it up. The very first time I heard this song, I said, what does that remind me of? It had a sound that I couldn't place right away, but it eventually came to me. When I hear that song, I think of the Nutcracker, the Christmas song. Tchaikovsky, I think it was called Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, I think is what they call it. I don't know if there was any inspiration from that or not, but Richie obviously had that classical
influences.
All that classical stuff, what I'm trying to say. But something about that song, when I hear it, I think of the Nutcracker. I can't describe it. I'm just curious if anybody else has ever picked up on that. Please put it in the comments. I can't be the only one.
Yeah.
But I love that song. It's just a very cool song. Again, Doogie's voice is just on a whole nother level. I wish he was like Tony Martin. I wish he had gotten a bigger career out of his brief stint in Rainbow. I mean, he's had a big career. Don't get me wrong. He's played with a little bit of everybody, but the average person still, when you say Doogie White, they have no idea who you're talking about.
No, it's a shame, mate. There is some amazing singers out there that can't even get a blooming record deal, let alone, imagine all them singers we're missing out on. But there you go. It's a good choice, though, mate. My number 5, going to the Jolene Turner. era again. Stone Cold.
Mm-hmm.
Just a beautiful song, man. Absolutely beautiful. The way he hangs them notes out of the actual chorus, and he's got such a soulful voice. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah, he did.
He's got so much soul and emotion in his voice. I love Jolene Turner, and even the stuff. All right, he's getting really on. He's still alive, isn't he? I'm not going to put myself. You know what? I always get him mixed up with the Survivor singer. I don't know why, Jimmy Jameson. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but he, like, his voice now ain't quite as good as it was, but even a few years ago, it had so much power in it and emotion. He's got an amazing voice. Stone Cold is. I always think of that one and Street of Dreams and one other that's going to come later. I always think of them similar songs, but that real, like you said, the melodic hits that sound like a hit as soon as you hear them. Amazing song, Stone Cold. It's my number 5, mate.
All right. Well, my number 4 was your number 5. Yeah, I agree. That's an awesome song. It's another one. Once in a while, I still hear it on the radio. Just love that mid-pace vibe, and like I said, like you said, when he gets to that, the way he drags that note out, he's just such a smooth singer. I guess that's probably the best word. He's very soulful, but he's got the power in his voice as well. Just a great singer, great song all the way around.
You know what? You and your lyrics, where you sometimes are a bit disappointed in certain words. Yeah. I've got one in that song. Can you guess what it is? Right near the end. It's like an ad-libbing bit. It's a bit where he's
sing the whole song to myself to get to it. So.
I think it's where he says, I think this is the exact words, "You put me in a deep freeze." Okay. I think he says. I mean, all right, we're talking about Stone Cold as a cold person, but deep freeze is a little bit. So, I mean, it doesn't really upset me, but I think he didn't need to say "you put me in a deep freeze."
I'll definitely be paying closer attention to that.
That'll probably piss you off now, that one, but there you go. Right. Okay, then, mate. That what are we at? We're at number 3, aren't we?
Yeah, that was
that's your number 4, wasn't it? I've got my number 4 to go. So you've actually mentioned this in passing already, off the Long Live Rock and Roll album, and probably a bit of a deeper cut as well. Lady of the Lake.
Yeah.
Just absolutely superb. When I think of this, I sort of think of the other sort of Run with the Wolf, that sort of deepness, cut and self-portrait. They sort of remind me of them. They're similar sort of songs, the deeper sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But absolutely love Lady of the Lake, mate. It's I said, it could be my favourite Dio era album of Rainbow, I reckon. Long Live Rock and Roll. Absolutely excellent song. That's my number 4, mate.
Yeah, they did a Ronnie Romero's, one of Ronnie's other bands, Lords of Black, did a cover of that. They did a great version of it. Of course, I guess Ronnie probably performed it with Rainbow. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay.
All
number
right,
3.
3, I'm going back to Stranger in the Soul again, Black Masquerade. That song I could actually imagine being a Black Sabbath song. I don't even have words for it. It's just such a great song. Got that dark vibe to it. And again, Doogie's voice is just, his voice just sucks me in regardless of what he's singing. I almost ranked that one number 2, but we'll get to it in a minute.
I mean, that album, it's just after the 80s, man. I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago to me, that album. It just seems a lot longer after the Jolene Turner period for something. But for 95, man, how many blimmin' years? Ridiculous, isn't it?
When I first heard there was going to be a Rainbow reunion, of course, back then I didn't have internet in that time. I guess internet was probably around, but I didn't have it. But I don't remember if it was in a magazine or where I had heard that there was going to be a new Rainbow album. I just assumed that Joe Lynn Turner would be back in the band.
I mean, it's quite a few years after the Joe Lynn Turner period,
Yeah.
obviously, but I mean,
he had been the most recent singer, so I just assumed, okay, they took some time off, they're going to do a new album.
Yeah.
And I don't know if y'all had Metal Edge magazine over there.
More Kerrang over here it was at the time.
Yeah, we had Metal Edge. We had Kerrang also, but Metal Edge is the one I used to buy, and they had a little snippet in there and talked about the new album, and it revealed the name, said a new or unknown Scottish singer named Doogie White. And I remember thinking, who the hell is Doogie White? The only thing I could think of was Doogie Howser, the teenage TV doctor at the time. That's what popped into my mind when I heard Doogie. And I was like, why didn't he just go back to Joe Lynn Turner? And, I'd never heard of Doogie White, but I bought it anyway just because I loved Rainbow. And I got to tell you, when that first song kicked off, I was instant convert. When I heard his voice, I was like, okay, he might have made the right choice. And it took, at that point, they kind of got back to the subject matter of the Dio era. There's a couple of songs on here that were more toward the commercial Turner type subject matter, but they kind of went back to the mythology type, Renaissance type feel.
More the classic rock sound as well, rather than commercial.
Yeah. And Doogie, I think he was the one to take if they were going to go back to that Dio style, they probably couldn't have done that with Joe Lynn Turner. So I think Doogie was a great choice to step in and do that type of music again.
Definitely, mate. Well, my number 3, mate, I'll go Joe Lynn Turner again. And probably the song that I fit in with those other two. We talked about Stone Cold and Street of Dreams. This is the last one I'd say. Well, I think of these 3 songs similar for some reason. That's Can't Let You Go.
Okay. Yeah.
I just love it, man. It's just a brilliant vocal again, obviously. A bit more melancholy, I'd say, a bit more sad sounding, definitely bordering on the ballad, just a gorgeous song off of Bent Out of Shape. That was the last one with Joe Lynn Turner, wasn't it? But just brilliant. I just love his voice so much, and Can't Let You Go. That's my number 3, mate.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going back to Stranger in Us All again. One you've already mentioned, Ariel.
See, I didn't even know if that was going to be yours, but I've obviously got good taste.
So this is, I've got several ringtones on my phone, but that's one of them. I love the opening, the drum beat that opens that song, for one thing. But it's about Ariel in mythology is an angel or a spirit, and the story I read. This is actually the first song that Richie wrote with his wife Candace Knight, and he wrote it basically with her in mind. She's like a mysterious angel. That's the way he envisions his wife. Lyrically, it sounds more like Doogie singing about a ghost or a spirit. It's just so. Again, it has that kind of throwback subject matter. I almost tried to squeak this in on our ballad show.
You should have done, because it might, I've refreshed myself a little bit on this show, so I probably would have said, I wouldn't have even known.
Parts of it had that slow ballady gallop, but then toward the end where it picks up, it gets pretty heavy there. So I was like, I don't know if I consider it a true ballad. That's an amazing song. I love it.
Well, my number 2 could be your number 1. So Stargazer's my number 2. It's going to be a lot of Rainbow fans' number 1. I know it's seen as one of the most classic songs of all time. It is brilliant. Possibly Ronnie James Dio's best vocal performance ever. It just seems like when he can't get any higher and more powerful, he just lifts it again. Just absolute classic. This is actually my missus loves this song. Mine, because her brother used to like Rainbow when she was growing up, so she actually remembers this song as well. But fantastic images in your mind, as you say, mate. It transports you to the lyrics do, and the music. Just an amazing song. Probably, the standout song easily on the album and known for everyone. But I didn't want to choose Saint that everyone would choose, like near the top. It ain't my top, but it's very close. Very, very close.
Number 2 is pretty close, yeah.
Yeah. Right, what's your number 1, mate?
Yeah, you gave it away. That is my number 1. And it's kind of unusual for me to pick an obvious one for my favorite, but that might be, oh God, if you put a gun to my head and made me pick my favorite song ever sang by Ronnie, I don't know. I might would pick that. I mean, he had so much great stuff with Sabbath. It's hard for me not to pick a Sabbath song, but this song has got to be considered one of his masterpieces.
Yeah.
And music wise, that, like you were talking about, that almost Egyptian feel, in the guitar solo, Middle Eastern or whatever you want to call it, and going all the way back to that incredible opening Cozy Powell drum roll. I mean, it's a perfect song.
Yeah.
Lyrically, it's just, I mean, who writes shit like that? I mean, who other than Ronnie Dio could have ever come up with lyrics like that?
And as well, it's like, it's almost got 2 choruses, that song. And, then it goes into the second part of it. And you think, it's just another level, isn't it? Just another level altogether. Absolutely amazing song.
When we talk about epic songs, I mean, we go on epic songs, that's definitely going to be on there. That's about as epic as you can get.
Amazing choice, mate. Amazing. Well, I knew that if you didn't do it I knew it had to be on your list.
Yeah.
So, I thought it might be number 1. But my number 1, and this has always been my favourite Rainbow song. And it's a single. It's played quite a bit on the radio as well. Jolene Turner again. Can you guess what it is?
Which one have we not done? I Surrender?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I just love it, man. I just think, and it was this the first song of the album? So it was like the opener for the first album he was on, wasn't it? Or it was definitely on the first album.
I'd have to go back and look. Yeah.
But, just as soon as his voice comes in, it's just, like I said, the soul in his voice and the power as well. I've got to admit, I've heard the version with Ronnie Romero, and I just didn't like it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it weren't nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
The music was just, it didn't have anything in it. It sounded empty. I don't know what it was. It was the mix of the song, but it didn't sound as heavy. And if you're making something just a few years ago, it should sound better than what it did back in 1980, whatever it was.
It almost seems like I said, I think Richie finally just gave in to all the people just, begging him to do something in the rock world again. It almost seems like I've got 2 of the 3 live albums that they've done. It almost seems like he was just going through the motions on some of this stuff. Some of it just did not sound inspired.
No.
It was like he just, okay, let's get up here and do this, and so I can get back to my wife and our Renaissance kind of music. We talked about with Dio singing Ozzy stuff. It wasn't quite the same. It's kind of the same thing with Rainbow, regardless of who the singer is. When you hear those Ronnie songs, you want to hear Ronnie doing them.
Yeah.
You hear those Joe Lynn Turner songs, you want to hear Joe Lynn Turner doing them. As good a singer as Ronnie Romero or even Doobie White, when they both did, I think, great jobs of covering that earlier material, but it's just something about hearing the original,
of course,
the original singer do his song.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. But nah, a great. I mean, both our lists were just fantastic. Like I said, Rainbow might not be right at my top bands of all time, but some of the songs they've done are some of my favourite songs.
I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised that neither one of us picked "Man on the Silver Mountain." Probably one of the more, definitely one of the more known Rainbow songs. And maybe it's on your honorable. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll do my honorable mentions first, as that,
Okay.
and then you can hear them. So my first one at the top, only because I've got them in order of the oldest album first. Man on the Silver Mountain.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what it is. I like the song. I'm not too keen on that riff, the main riff. Din, 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 din. I'm just don't know. It just didn't. It's never done that much for me. It's more. I prefer a bit of a smashing chord, I suppose, rather than a picky sort of riff. Catch the Rainbow. 16th Century Greensleeves, which was my favourite when I first had it when I was a kid. Still good. Just made my honourable mentions. LA Connection. Gates of Babylon. Now that's a big song for a lot of Rainbow fans, and it's good. It's a good song. Desperate Heart. That's all I've got, mate. That's all my honourable mentions, and there's quite a few off of the last album, I must admit. But they don't, the Doogie White one, but it's not like they really stood out. It's like I think they was all good, but to put them up as an honourable mention, not quite as an honourable mention. But there you go. That's my honourable mention, mate. What you got?
I've got 5 of them. Wolf to the Moon from Stranger in Salt. I love that one. Honestly, I love that whole album. There's not a. It's funny how you and I are very similar on some things, but this album you like, but you don't love. I love this album from start to finish. I love this album. But anyway, Wolf to the Moon from that album. Spotlight Kid from Difficult to Cure. Only criticism about that one, it gets a little too busy in that middle section. Again, Richie, that self-indulgent stuff he kind of did brings it down a little bit. But otherwise, great song and a fan favorite. I mean, I think they do it every time they play live. They play that song, and it goes over very good in a live setting. Catch the Rainbow, like you mentioned, another amazing Ronnie Dio ballad.
Yeah.
Lady of the Lake, which you mentioned, and you also mentioned Eyes of the World.
Yeah.
Well, I could have added 5 more, but I figured
it. No, man, it's good that we've done these because these are one of the first bands, aren't they? Classic rock bands, obviously come out of Deep Purple.
It's so influential.
Yeah.
You don't hear a whole lot about Rainbow anymore, but like Metallica, they were heavily influenced by Rainbow and Deep Purple. You might not hear it so much in their style of music, but especially Lars, I think Deep Purple was always his favorite band. But like I said, they did a great version of Kill the King. Y'all look that one up if you haven't heard it.
I will. Yeah, I will do, mate.
But, they've influenced a lot of bands over the years.
They have, mate. They have, definitely have. So good, we've covered them. That's good. I'm glad we did it. So thanks for joining me again, mate.
Thank you as usual.
And obviously you'll be back soon. Not just on the live streams. We're going to do something soon. We'll get some plans together.
I got to mention too, since you brought that up. I mean, I love doing these 101s with you and with Darren and the tape ones like we do here, but those live streams are a blast. I'll admit, when you first asked me about doing a live one, I was like, okay, I'll do it, but I hope I don't say something stupid or.
No, they are great, man. I must admit.
A little bit nervous on that first one, but that is so much fun. And hearing you read the comments that people are making as we go along, and it's almost like it's not as good as sitting around a table at a pub, eating fish and chips and drinking beer, but it's about as close as we can get at this point. So.
You're right, mate. It's as good as you can get. Really I'm glad you enjoy them, man. I really am.
Really looking forward to the 87. I've already got about 20 albums.
Brilliant. All right then, mate. Well, until next time, yeah?
Yep, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate. See you soon.